Now, I'm just a regular layman civilian. However, I noticed things that everybody does not. And there are some key things missing when it comes to the story of these missing and dead scientists and researchers that have been popping up in or around the whole study of UFOs and aliens and blah, blah, blah. To be honest, I think they're tying up loose ends because there are certain people who worked on certain projects and maybe they didn't know that the projects they were working on were part of something bigger. When it comes to certain types of jobs or of things that the government works on, I'm noticing that there's a pattern of compartmentalization where certain people, they're on different sides of the country and they're working on certain parts of something that are a part of a larger picture, but they're not letting these people talk to each other or meet directly. So they don't know what they're a part of. I think that some of these scientists that are dead or missing are people that in the future would be the ones to tell us that everything that we think that we're seeing on the news and in the skies, it's all fake bullshit. And these scientists would have the credentials in the history and they'll be believable to the public where people would listen to them. You know, when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, when you find out the role he played in the whole creating this vaccine, convincing politicians to help legislatures in their states get the whole emergency youth authorization pushed through so they could mass euthanize people in our country and break all of our laws for medical protection and basically circumvent the Constitution, and everything was ruled unconstitutional later in the future. But for the time being, people were literally being coerced into taking an injection. The virus was fake, but the injection, the reaction was real. The aliens are fake. The interdimensional beings are fake. Everything that's going to come up when it comes to UFOs, it's fake. But what's going to be real is going to be the response by our governments and the fear that our people are going to have. You know, when people talk about geoengineering, they talk about how they spray these chemicals in our skies. They talk about how it makes us sick and it poisons our food. And it's a known fact. Certain states have already banned it recently, but they're not just spraying in the upper ionosphere chemicals that can help manipulate the weather. Some of the metals and reflective material that they're spraying in the sky, it doesn't necessarily come down. One might say that over the past 30 years, they've turned our skies into the largest television screen humans have ever invented. But they've never projected anything onto it yet. So when it does happen, it's going to scare people to death. We talked about Project Bluebeam 30, 40 years ago. This was always the plan. This is still going to happen. The people that are behind this, they don't have a stop button. They don't have a slow down. They don't have a reverse. Every one of these agendas are going to have to play out. You know, like I was saying just a second ago, when it comes to COVID and it comes to the whole scare around the scamdemic, the part that was effective was the fact that there were too many people that had no idea what was going on. But then there were some lights at the end of the tunnel. A man by the name of Alex Jones introduced us to David Icke. And another man brought him on a show called London Real. I believe it was March 17th of 2020, when nobody knew nothing. The lockdown had just started on the 15th of March. This was 2-3 days later. David Icke got on London Real, and for 3 hours, he explained everything that was going to happen and how there was no virus. He explained that that PCR test was invented by a man named Kerry Mullis. Kerry Mullis hated Dr. Fauci and told him that this test is not to be used to try to diagnose somebody and say, hey, you have a disease or you're sick from a disease, or that's not what the test is for. Electron microscopy is just basically magnification, but there's no way to know if what you're looking at is making someone sick or not making them sick. It's not a diagnosis tool. And he said that people like Fauci would use it to push any agenda they want to in the future. And a few months before this pandemic launched in 2019, he died under weird circumstances. Again, the key to the fear was the unknown. But when someone like David Icke is getting on television, he's explaining to you, hey, the PCR test is going to give you a false positive. What it's actually reading are these other things that are inside the human body that we just recently discovered. And they're it's detecting those, but it's pretending it's something else. And they're just trying to scare you because they're going to try to offer you a solution in the future. And we're 6 years later. The solution is giving everyone cancer and heart attacks. Again, it's the reaction. It's the response. That's the danger. The problem I'm having with all of these scientists that are passing away and dying is that no one's talking about how they were all connected to Jeffrey Epstein. If Epstein and Bill Gates came up with a plan to scare people into believing something so they can offer them a solution, then it would be logical to think that if these scientists were also people that were associated with Epstein, that they also created another scam, another hoax, another fear tactic by using UFOs and the threat of an invasion to scare people into doing something that is going to be harmful for them, or just making a lot of people just, scaring them into submission, turn over their sovereignty, creating a one world government as a response to an alien attack on some place on our planet. If they can project in the skies spaceships, aliens, they can project a picture of Jesus, or God knows what they're going to show you, how many of us will believe it? But and right now would think zero, but I'm wrong. Because when I asked myself and I asked my friends and family members 5 years ago, how many of you were going to take the fake vaccine? I was wrong by the numbers. I saved as many as I could, but I'm only one man and I did my best. The same people that fell for that scam are going to fall for the next one in the skies, and it's going to hit us hard. I'm noticing that there's a connection because the so-called chosen people, that's who Epstein worked for and worked with this entire time. And whatever it is, they're going to be immune to the results. But see, there's an issue. Iran has literally destroyed their homeland. Iran has done so much damage to Israel and to the Middle East that the weather manipulation towers that they were using, the different HARPs that they set up around the Middle East that were basically diverting clouds away from Iran. Iran destroyed all those towers when they were attacking all of our bases in Israel. Now the clouds are coming back to Iran and the rain has started again. So there's been weather war going on against Iran for 40 years. And that's how powerful these attacks were. So that means that their agenda that is going to be orchestrated from Epstein's base, which is where we know it's located, in that little country the size of New Jersey, they took heavy damage, but the agenda is still going to go forward. We know that because these scientists are coming up dead and missing. These are not scientists that are dying because they had some secret technology. These are the scientists that are confirmed in the future that this technology is all fake and that it's all theoretical, and that if they think about the kind of work they've been producing and doing all these years, that they could admit that they were just basically paid for their credentials and none of it was real. None of this technology actually exists, and it's all just going to be a scam to get control and to find excuses to wipe out more people. That's my theory, and I can back it up. See, you're going to notice a lot of these scientists worked at a place called Los Alamos. in New Mexico. Tell me, kids, how many of you watched the Steve Bannon interview? How many of you know where Zorro Ranch is located and why Epstein bought Zorro Ranch? So look, let's take a listen to what they're saying about some of these scientists, and then we're going to connect these scientists to Epstein via the state of New Mexico, which no one has done yet. And I'm going to be, I guess I'm the first person on YouTube to do it. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Story that caught our attention. We're talking about a number of U.S. scientists, some connected to very sensitive research, who have died or disappeared. Let's break down what we know so far. We're going to start with Carl Grillmar. Carl Grillmar, pictured here, was an astrophysicist at Caltech. He worked on a NASA-supported space telescope project and infrared systems.
Now, for those of you who don't know, an astrophysicist is an imaginary profession. There's no such thing. It is a made-up profession which takes years of education. I mean, just FYI, you can literally take courses and you can go to college for 15 years and study how to capture and train Pokemon. But it won't make Pokemon any more real. They still won't exist. But you can pay to go somewhere to study it, and they'll even give you the credentials. It doesn't mean it's real. It's not. But this is a person who, in the future, they will go to those who are specialists or who they think have information. They will ask questions. These are the people who would be the witnesses that would say, hey, this stuff doesn't make sense. This isn't true. These are the people who probably, they took the money, but they were on the fence about how far they would go along with the scam. And that's why they have to be removed. That's my theory.
Now, he was shot and killed at his home just 2 months ago. Then there's Frank Maywald. He was a senior scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, focused on advanced satellite systems, and he died nearly 2 years ago. But
satellites don't exist. They're fake. Satelloons exist. High aerial balloons that fly over with cameras, but are there mechanical instruments in space that require zero maintenance that have been up there for 40, 50 years. There's no cooling system. There's no heating system. No one can ever give you the schematics and tell you how they work, who designed them. You've never seen a satellite in your life. But the camera system is supposed to be 40 years old, but it's superior to the cameras we have on our phones today. And they're circling a round ball covered by water that spins, but they're orbiting at 72,000 miles per hour, along with the Hubble, along with the space station. We never watched that. Remember on the Science Channel, they had a show called How It's Made. You know, if the space station was real, they would have played the construction of it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to not just to demonstrate the advancement of American engineering, but of human engineering. We would have been watching it 24 hours a day on HBO. It would have never left the screen. But all of a sudden, it's just there. All of a sudden, nobody knows how it got there. You know, it's more dangerous to build a 7-Eleven than it is to build a space station in Earth's orbit where there's no oxygen and yada, yada, yada. It's all fake nonsense. Every single person that's coming up missing studied bullshit. And if push came to shove, and all of a sudden there's this alien invasion and everyone's freaking out on the news, something in the sky, these people, they took the money to commit to lie to the public, but I don't think they were willing to go as far as the others, and that's why they took some of these people out. They were not going to go along with the lie forever, which is going to be required in the days that are coming up soon. They're going to need everyone to go along with the same story, and I think they're tying up their loose ends. A NASA JPL scientist and astrophysicist from Caltech are the equivalent of a Pokemon trainer from Michigan. Pokemon are also not real. These are all the same studies. They're all fake. It's all theoretical. That means they don't pass. It's theoretical. It's not scientific. There's no scientific method applied to any of these physics theories, which is why I abandoned studying physics in college, because it's all theoretical. That means somebody can make a suggestion that's so outlandish, but the problem is you can't prove what this person said. But the trick is also you can't disprove it, which is the problem. And that's how a lot of these scams go so far and last for so long. But one of the biggest scams is the black hole, 50 light years away. No one's ever been there. No one's ever left Earth's orbit. There is no leaving Earth's orbit. But people put these suggestions out there with no proof, and the human imagination runs wild. You have Gene Roddenberry and George Lucas didn't help with their creations of these shows with this fake false science and all these terms that have convinced the public that there are thousands of people going in and out of space when really there's less than 15 in all of history, allegedly. That's where there's a problem with all of this. There's a fake alien invasion coming, and the public is not aware of it, and they're going to fall for it. And again, your ignorance is going to affect my bottom line. Last time I had to abandon my home of California because everybody wanted to believe that the air was going to kill them, even though all the homeless people were still alive. When everybody believes that there are aliens attacking us in the sky, I'm going to probably have to abandon my country. I might have to abandon my continent because obviously the United States is a target. I'm going to have to find somewhere else to go live because it's going to be chaos here when this begins. And that's the whole purpose. We all knew this was coming. We just didn't know when. But unfortunately for you and me, it's going to be in our lifetime, and it's going to be soon.
His cause of death has never been made public. Meanwhile, Monica Reza also reportedly connected to NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab project. She went missing last summer while hiking in California.
These people also, at one point in time, worked at Los Alamos base in New Mexico, which is why Epstein bought Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. We're going to go into that in a few minutes. Let's just finish up with this right here.
No trace. It keeps going. There's William McCaslin, a retired Air Force general. He too is missing. He's a former head of Air Force Research Lab and oversaw advanced space and surveillance programs.
Now, if space is fake, then there's no such thing as an advanced space. So whatever his job is fake. He knows his job is fake. He takes the money. Did he ever have questions about continuing to take the money? And if you ask questions, we know what happens. We saw what happened to Charlie Kirk when he started asking questions of the same people that are behind this. There's no, you're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to push back. You're supposed to take orders and take the money. If you ever decide you don't want to take the money anymore, then you're no longer going to have a place on amongst the living. That's what appears to be the history. Let's go to the next fake subject and see what this person studies.
Missing since February. Reports say he once oversaw funding connected to a project that also included Monica Reza. Now,
so all these people are connected, and they all were being paid for fake jobs, but they use their credentials because they all went to school for all these years. But when they graduate, the things that they study are just basically nonsensical, theoretical professions. So who's going to hire you to work for them to just give them weird theories? Nobody. But there are organizations who will say that, hey, 10 scientists agree with me, and they'll pay you to put your name on this list as one of those 10 scientists, and they will use your credentials to help them get approved for funding to push other scams. And it's all a huge Ponzi scheme. But remember, 50 years ago, they would say, hey, 50 dentists agree that smoking is good for children. or chewing tobacco is healthy for your gums. And there are different dentists or people back then that you could pay and you could use their credentials to help you lie. It's the same thing here. These people go to school forever. And when they graduate, there's no one willing to hire them because it's not like they are going to school for a trade or something that requires a certain set of skills or some kind of labor. These are theoretical. These are jobs of the mind where you're basically just pontificating on topics, and there's no one's going to pay you for that. But what they pay you for is to use your credentials and to keep your mouth shut about what you're not actually doing, which is nothing. There is no substance that's from any of these jobs or any of these careers because what the careers exist around, it doesn't exist. None of this is real. It's all fake. And we just believe it because the television has been telling us to for the past 60 years. But it's all BS. Let's go to the next person.
Now, there's more. To New Mexico, Melissa Casais. She has been missing since last summer. She worked at Los Alamos National Lab. She had an administrative role, but reportedly also had security clearances. Just months earlier, she went missing. So too did Anthony Chavez, also connected to Los Alamos. And then
Anthony Chavez from Los Alamos, Melissa Casais, also from Los Alamos. Now you're going to say, but Rico, what does that have to do with anything? What is the importance of Los Alamos? Well, the reason I say this is all a scam and it's all fake because Epstein faked this out with the pandemic. He's faking us out with Bitcoin. I think he's faking the United States out with looking glass technology. There's a possibility that it exists because Epstein said that's what he was trying to create. He brought the scientists from Los Alamos. He recruited 1,000 of them that were working on the Manhattan Project. He recruited them from Los Alamos, just like these people. He recruited them all to come work for him at Zorro Ranch to study basically parts of science that were basically that no one understood, that there were no words to describe these vast areas of the unknown that are in science. And they worked from 93 until he went to jail in 2008. But they never tell us what they discovered or what they created or even what they were researching. 15 years with 1,000 scientists from the Manhattan Project of Los Alamos being systematically recruited by Epstein, who was a civilian, but he has access to government staff that are being retired. He was able to recruit them to come work on Zorro Ranch at his labs. And we have no idea what they were studying. I think they were even 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they were preparing for the fake alien invasion, even back then. And I think this is where the genesis of the rumors of Project Bluebeam, this is where they began. So let's listen to a little bit of what they were saying about Epstein at Los Alamos, and he explains why he was there. Let's take a listen.
Yeah. And he goes, why did you put Zorro Ranch where you put it? And he goes, well, a bunch of Los Alamos physicists were retiring. And so, they were kind of aging out. And I wanted to speak with them.
Los Alamos, which was the high energy lab up in New Mexico, was losing all its scientists.
And you bought your property out in New Mexico to be near that?
Yes, because the scientists were they cut the funding for high energy physics.
And you're like, oh my God, how lax is our DOE, Department of Energy Security? And then you realize, Bill Richardson was kind of in with the Clintons and he was the Secretary of Energy. And he's there and he's just systematically siphoning American nuclear secrets.
Now, there are hundreds, thousands of bases. And why am I the only one that are saying, wait a minute? All these scientists were all working at Los Alamos. Epstein specifically were recruiting these scientists from Los Alamos out of all the bases, out of all the American bases all over the world. Everything's coming back to Los Alamos. And Jeffrey Epstein specifically bought Zorro Ranch, the famous Zorro Ranch, so he could recruit. And he admits, I was recruiting the scientists from the Manhattan Project because once the Soviet Union fell, there were no more use for the Manhattan Project because there were no more Soviets to counter. So those scientists were going to have to move out of the New Mexico area. So Epstein bought Zorro Ranch and he hired them to do what? What did he hire them to do? Epstein said that he hired these scientists because they wanted to find a way to use high energy physics and mathematics to see the future of the stock market. He called it, they created something called genetic algorithms. What that translates to me is he was attempting to create looking glass technology where they could find a way to see into the future. I think that's the technology that Israel has convinced the United States that they have, but there's evidence that they actually do have it. There is evidence, but they have it and they share their intel with the United States about the future. That's why they're so important to us. They offer us nothing. We couldn't even airlift our soldiers from Afghanistan that were injured to Tel Aviv for surgery. We'd have to send them an extra 5 hours away to Germany because the Israelis won't take us. They're not really an ally. The only intel we get from them is this looking glass where they tell us the future. That's why they're important. But I'll be honest, with all the attacks that have been happening in Iran, from Iran, I think that they destroyed where the looking glass was stored. Because it seems like we're flying blind right now. Trump just had an assassination attempt, a person that was trying to kill him today at the correspondence dinner. If they had the looking glass technology, they would have warned Trump because they would have seen the headlines 2 weeks ago. But they didn't. I think the looking glass was destroyed. But let's go a little bit further into this.
And then he goes, there's another email where he said, I killed pawns back in the day or whatever. And he's talking about Pons and Fleischman who are claiming to get cold fusion results. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, what is Epstein dealing with cold fusion? And then he's hanging out at Harvard with the math department.
None of that makes any sense.
It's weird.
None of that makes any sense.
Really strange.
I used to drive by that ranch all the time. I lived really close to it when I lived in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And they always called it the Victoria's Secret Ranch because there were
really?
models there. Yeah, everyone knew that as the Victoria's Secret Ranch.
So you would drive by Epstein's ranch and they would call it the Victoria's Secret Ranch.
See, I mean, not right by it, but as you drive it on the road, you can see it up on that. Yeah.
Well, you know why they called it that? It's because he was close with Les Wexner, who was the CEO and founder of Victoria's Secret. Yeah.
Oh,
so you would drive by there and they would call it that.
Everybody called it that, yeah.
No way.
We'd drive up to Los Alamos to pick up alpha radiation probes that my company did. And, we'd come back. But, yeah, every time we drove out, we passed by it a couple of times.
That's so nuts. Damn. So what do you do? Because, like, it's also for the people that are, like, disbelieve your stuff. It's like, look at all this bizarre. It's like this cabal is controlling science or something, it's so weird.
That is really weird.
It's not that this cabal is controlling science. This cabal is creating the false science. Everything that we think that we know as a fact, there is a cabal that created the lies. I'll give you an example of a lie that you believe that's only been around since the 70s, is that oil comes from the bones of deceased dinosaurs, and that eventually dinosaur bones turn into some kind of oil, fossil fuels. Fossilized bones turn into oil, so that you don't think that it is you don't think that it's an infinite source. You think it's finite. It's only so much of it. Why do you think that? Let me ask you, have you ever seen a bone turn to oil? That is just an example of what I mean. It's all made up. They tell you that 97% of what we think about healthcare and medical science, 97% of it is theoretical. There's only like 3% that's actually verified fact. And we use that 3% to do surgeries. And what is the medical malpractice rate for even the best surgeons in America. We don't know. We don't. And there are people that have made billions off of convincing us that we know certain things that we don't. And the key is making sure that the public doesn't have the tools to disprove you. These scientists are the tools. These people that are coming up dead, they are those who can disprove you. See, me personally, I just waste all them years in school pretending and then get a job where I'm pretending to be a part of a profession that doesn't really exist. Because then I could have, so that's why no one's going to listen to me and say, oh yeah, I can trust what he's saying. When I see those ships in the sky, he's saying they're fake and they're not real. And those aliens are actually just human animal hybrids that are probably 30, 40 years old, because that's how long ago that they started doing those experiments. But he doesn't have a degree. So I'm not going to listen to him. But these people got the degrees. Certain groups of people will eventually listen to them. I think those who are going to create the most problems are who they're getting rid of, which is why they had an issue with where they wanted to get rid of Candace Owens. They still want to get rid of Candace Owens. They still want to get rid of Alex Jones. And now they're targeting Tucker. They're targeting voices that are similar to mine, not necessarily conservative, but pragmatic, realistic. People who are not necessarily easily swayed by fear. We don't have a spirit of fear that we live by. You know, even me sitting here and talking on this camera, there are other people I meet that want to do shows and they want to talk, but they're afraid of what people are going to think and what someone's going to say, and it stops them. But when you don't have a spirit of fear, it just changes who you are as a person. And you speak differently, you behave differently, and you're able to thoughts with people, and you're able to explain them because you thought about them and you have your own rationale. They don't want us influencing the public the next time, because there are those who we saved from the vaccine, but whatever's coming in the future, they don't want us to become shepherds and guide people in another direction. They need us to leave their sheep alone. But I don't know if I can do that because, again, that's going to affect my bottom line. I need people. I need society, because I need to have my family. I need my family to grow up and live in a society that's even a remote resemblance of the one I grew up in when I was a kid. But if I let all these people walk into the slaughter, what will my family inherit? Who will my children be with in the future? Which is why I'm trying to help guide people, correct the course, and explain to them what I'm seeing happen. These scientists that are coming up missing, they're all connected to whatever Epstein was working on Zorro Ranch. And I think the ability to fool the world into believing in aliens was one of the projects that Epstein was working on with these scientists at Zorro Ranch all those years, because no one knows. You know, when I ask people, now you guys aren't curious to what Epstein was studying when he had the office at Harvard or MIT? You never cared what was his, why was Epstein why did he recruit all these scientists to come to Epstein Island? You don't care what they were researching. All you care about is these politicians were having sex. You're reading the Epstein files. They're going to release 2% of them because this Los Alamos and the fake alien invasion, all that stuff is in the Epstein files. So it can't be released. The vaccine files are a part of the Epstein files. It can't be released. But everyone keeps talking to me about Trump and sex with kids. And I'm like, but what about the research? You're being distracted by all this salacious BS that's unproven. There's no videos. There's nothing. It's just words. But you're missing everything else that they've released. There's way more information. And I'm like one of the only people that's listening and reading. And I'm like, well, where's everyone else at? I don't have a lot of viewers. I'm in the middle of the night right now on a weekend, very slow, but this video is going to go up tomorrow. It's going to be clipped. But these scientists and this fake alien invasion, it all connects back to Epstein. And Epstein connects back to that little bitty country that's been basically controlling the world, controlling our arsenal, controlling our country for the past 40, 50 years. Ever since Kennedy was assassinated, they've been controlling us. People keep saying free Palestine, but I'm like, from them, but I'm like, well, why don't we free America first? Even our president is compromised now, it seems, by this country because, well, who else would want to see the future more than a person like Trump? Epstein was able to crack the code. But what if Looking Glass wasn't real and he was actually able just to guess the lotto numbers and guess the stock market? He did have information. It seems like he did have access to the Looking Glass, but we don't know for sure. But if we can say that Scamdemic was fake, there was no virus, and we work ourselves backwards, and that means all of it's fake. All of the science and everything that they think Epstein came up with, all the stuff they would give him and Ghislaine Maxwell, and Maxwell was also a brilliant scientist as well. I mean, you mean the way they talk about Maxwell and Epstein was like they were some pimps out here driving around in a Cadillac, slapping up 15 to 16-year-old girls, and that's not, bro. It was, the man was a genius. He was brilliant. Maxwell was a well-educated, well-connected woman from a prominent family. She was literally at the Clinton's daughter's wedding. She worked for a company that actually owned the oceans, and she drove and she was able to operate underwater vehicles. I mean, there's so much to these people that no one ever talks about, and that's what makes me skeptical, because it seems like they just want to distract you with all this sex stuff because they want you to ignore the research, and it's working. I talk about the research. No one else does. I talk about the scientists. Everyone else just talks about the fucking politicians. The politicians are nothing. They were bribed to use to get them to so that you could allow the emergency use authorization, the EUA. That's why they had to bribe these politicians, so that they can get these injections into people without as many questions asked for as long as they could before it was all going to be shut down. That's why they had to bribe the politicians, and the politicians went along with it. But that's not the big story. The 80%, the 90% is all the research that what were they researching? Gravity. They're talking about, oh, they were studying anti-gravity. There's no such thing as gravity. Gravity doesn't exist. It's never been proven. It's never been verified. You can't measure it. It's just a word that we came up with to describe a force or to describe the phenomenon that we don't understand. You don't believe me? Ask Neil deGrasse Tyson, what is gravity? Ask anybody, what is gravity? You can't make an anti-gravity technology if gravity doesn't exist. If gravity was a force, you would be able to measure it. You'd be able to study it. You can't. If gravity existed, insects wouldn't exist because the force would crush their exoskeletons. They would not exist unless you're trying to convince me that, well, gravity is selective. Depending on how the size of the person, yada, 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 it's all made up BS. And just for me, and when I say this, for people to try to this gets into your brain, tries to process it, your immediate first thought is to reject what I'm saying, because you've been believing, you've been conditioned to accept lies for so long that the truth hurts. It's holy water to a vampire. None of this is real. But we've gone so far without calling out how fake it is that now they're planning to do something that is probably going to wipe out millions of people. I don't know if they're going to pretend that it was an attack, it was a bombing from space and this weapon. We don't know exactly what, or they're going to say it was a plague, some kind of poison. But think about it. What do you think the vaccine was? Of a time delayed, and now you get heart attacks and cancer, exotic cancers, exotic body diseases, things that no one ever even thought of. All of a sudden, because you took these experimental injections and you don't even know where they came from. They obviously existed before warp speed. We don't even know what's in them. No one talks about it. Everyone just trying to just move on. How the hell did you get over that? Injecting unknown substances into your bloodstream, and I'm the only one that remembers. Me. Alone. I don't know where everyone else is mentally. I can't get over it. But I also can't get over Epstein buying a ranch to recruit people from Los Alamos. And now all the Los Alamos scientists that were working with Epstein some of them are alive, but now they're coming up missing and dead. Because it seems like they were going to be the ones who were going to blow the whistle and not go along and actually provide a counter. And then they've been working on these projects to fool the public, and maybe they might have stole some of the material. And when the time came, they would actually be able to provide proof that what you're seeing in the sky and what the news is telling you is all fake. It's all man-made. Humans. Human-made.
Yeah.
And it's again, I'll say it. It's just we're just talking about Epstein. That's one guy. That's one guy. It's not just one guy.
Clearly not.
No, Pillows. I did not vote for Biden. If you're referring to Biden molesting his daughter and having and her diary explaining what Biden was doing to her and all the other creepy stuff, yes. But I didn't vote for Biden. Unfortunately, there's actually proof of what he did. If you're talking about Trump, you're just making that up. Trump's not convicted of anything. There's no evidence of anything. You're just, but in California, where there's the people from your demographic, they actually pass laws to protect pedophiles. So it seems like you're trying to compliment Trump because, well, he's one of you. He's a pedophile. And I mean, if that's the case, we're not doing a whole circle jerk where we just celebrate Trump right now. We're actually talking about the science of what's going on with these scientists. So you're going to have to find another platform for that, unfortunately.
No, it's not.
It's not just one guy.
He's
Not
a
at all.
front.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not just.
I mean, he might have been the ringleader, but it's
there's a lot of people.
Or he might have been an extension of something much.
he could be.
But he was obsessed with the Casimir effect, and he would hold these. Yeah. He would hold these gravity conferences, and then the very fact that he's saying,
mean, do you know that for a fact?
oh, yeah, this is all in the emails. This is all a fact. And yeah, there's an old colleague of mine, Eric Weinstein, that talks about
Casimir effect. And
Yeah. So this old colleague of mine, Eric Weinstein, has this theory of everything in physics where it involves gauging gravity instead of quantizing gravity. Beyond my pay grade, but I find it interesting. And Epstein, like,
by the way, everything he's saying about gravity, it's all just made up. The Casimir effect is a made up theory. Everything he's saying about gravity and his old colleague, it's theoretical. It's never been proven, never been verified. You can't measure it. You can't reproduce it. So it doesn't pass the scientific method, which means it's not science. It's propaganda at that point. It's something else. It's the imagination. It's not real. This virus, I was telling people there is no virus. Now no one talks about it anymore. It's gone. You guys fell for it. You believed it. I knew better. But I wasn't on the internet. I was too busy partying, too busy hanging out, too busy going out and living my normal life, not thinking that I was going to be responsible for trying to save society as a whole in the future. I thought everything was just all about me. I didn't see the bigger picture. So I'm trying to course correct now in any way I can.
somehow knew about his theory before like just about anybody else did. And so Weinstein's like, how is Epstein so tied in with the Harvard math department? Like,
do you think it was just his hobby or something, like science was his hobby and he just had money, so he had the ability to connect to these?
I think you read his emails and it's like there's somebody behind him who knew exactly what to look for, but he didn't know. He was like a low-level version of it. And so he'll
a compartmentalization. Even Epstein probably didn't. He wasn't the mastermind. He didn't even know what he was putting together. He was just paid to put it together. But then again, he was a brilliant guy. People try to say he was dumb. They just don't want you to listen to him. He wasn't. Watch his interview with Steve Bannon. Watch it, and then it'll change what you think about Epstein.
Say things like, you need to boost your physics. Time is much weirder than you think. It's actually just a function of the vibration of cesium atoms. And you're like, who's giving you this stuff? You know? And then he's sort of like mining people for the info. And weird.
I mean, did he said that?
He said that. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is true.
Well,
It is
an
kind of-
atomic clock.
it's an
right?
atomic
Like,
clock,
It's just
yeah.
a vibrating cesium.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it.
But is it true? Is any of that true? Is any of that verifiable? Or are you just creating a base that you're going to start from going forward, where you're creating the science, you're creating the reality of something yourself. And then others have to go forward based off of your information you're providing. And because they're compartmentalized as well, they're not looking at the source of the beginning of the information. These people with money put a lot of this together, but none of it was real. People saying they're going to the moon, going to outer space, none of it is real. We're if anything, we're inside of something right now. We're inside of something that when you look up at the sky, there is a ceiling to the sky. There's a reason the sky is blue. And it's not because of water vapor in the upper atmosphere. We're inside of something. There is no going out or coming in. There is none of that. But you believe it is because the television tells you. I remember when I was a kid, they swore to us, if you watch too much TV, your brain will melt. And it's true. I see too many people with melted brains who can no longer think or function as adults or as humans. I see them everywhere. We think they're zombies. I believe they're NPCs. You couldn't even have a coherent conversation with most of them. Anything beyond the surface, it's impossible to have as far as a conversation. And that's why we're getting ourselves into so much trouble.
It's true. I don't know if that's what time is, but
Time-
it's our perception of time.
Yeah.
Right?
Time is very weird, isn't it? Wouldn't you say, just from a pure physics perspective, it's an anomaly. It's strange.
Yeah.
Like it's the most used noun in the English language, but we can only define it with respect to the movement of macroscopic bodies or to oscillations on an electromagnetic wave. But it's not like it's a thing that we're like, it's almost like fish in a fishbowl where like the fish are trying to even describe what water is, but they can't because they're in it.
Yeah.
And then we're in time.
No, yeah, you have to be outside of it to describe it. I mean, that's it. And you can't be outside it. It's just a concept that makes us happy.
It's theoretical. We don't understand it. Just like gravity, we can't measure it. It's whatever we say it is, and that's the problem. Because who's okay when we say whatever we say? Well, who's the we? The we are going to be different. There's different groups of we's, and if there's a we group that wants to harm us, are we going to listen to them only? And that's the question. That's who's pushing to take control over everything. There is a we that is coming to do us harm. And they've already done a lot of harm, but they want to do more. So let's look at this next video, actually, about some other, they're talking about more scientists and more data. But again, they all connect back to Epstein's research. And if he scammed us with the scamdemic, then they're going to be the ones scamming us with this fake alien invasion, which is why Epstein is still alive. He's orchestrating all of this, but through that group that's under attack from Iran right now. That might be the only thing that saves the world. I mean, the fact that they are able to now have rain in a country that's been in a drought for 40 years because they destroyed the weather towers that were controlling the clouds and their weather. Well, then that means that this agenda can be defeated. It can be stopped. This whole where they want to, this whole transhumanism agenda, where they wipe out 90% of humans, where there's no more children, there's no more marriages, there's no more families. That whole agenda, if Iran can stop the weather modification that drove them into a drought where they're basically going to have to evacuate their major cities because now the rain is coming back, like damn near within a matter of days of destroying those towers, then that means that everything can be reversed and it can be stopped. So there's hope, which is why I'm making these videos. Because I'll be honest, I'm looking at everything that's been going on lately, and most people just gave up. They've tuned out. They don't want to hear it anymore. They're just enjoying their last days. Everyone feels like this is the end. A lot of people feel like this is the end. Less and less people are making plans. Even the real estate market is stopping because people are afraid because they don't know what's going to do. They're panicking, but they don't even know. They feel something's going on, but they don't know what it is. We're all going through that right now. But there is something coming, but there's hope. We can fight it. They're not all powerful and all knowing. They're not omnipotent. They're not immortal. We can save ourselves. There's no one coming. It's up to us. Now, I'm not expecting this video to go viral or go anywhere, but the fact is I'm on record talking about it. So let's see. They say the mystery deepens. I don't think it does. It's very simple what's happening, but we'll humor Fox and Friends.
Into the mysterious death or disappearance of 11 scientists deepens. And now House Oversight Chair James Comer is worried something shady is happening. Listen.
It does appear that there's a high possibility that something sinister is taking place here. We've asked all those agencies, the Department of Energy, NASA, the Department of War, to all share information with us so that we can see if we can put it together and find any missing links to try to solve what's going on here, because it's very unlikely that this is a coincidence.
Wow. Former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor Nicole Parker joins me now. Nicole, that is quite a powerful statement from the Oversight Committee chair. He can't just say things willy-nilly, loosey-goosey. When he says something, it has an import. It has a power. So the fact that he said that tells you something. Do you think something sinister is going on? And if so, what?
You know, Todd, it's an excellent question. I think at this point, it's just too soon to know.
You know what? There's something weird. This woman right here, Amy Eskridge, she had made a video and she seemed to be a little erratic. But she made a video. Let's take a look at her video. Where's the Amy Eskridge video? She was talking about ultra-terrestrials and extraterrestrial. Now, you would imagine the way she's talking, she would have been helping push this agenda. But then why would they have to kill her off? Now, this video, this already has 22,000 views. It's only been one day. So let's take a look.
So the ultra-terrestrials, I'll just tell you, the ultra-terrestrials, I think, have you heard of the P-52s and the P-47s? Do you know what that is? They're us from the future. They're from here. They are you. They are me. They're from here, from the future. P-40.
So, again, space is fake. There are no aliens. What she's asserting is that there are people, humans, in the future who are finding ways to contact us in the past. That's way more realistic and reasonable than pretending that you landed on the surface of an object in our sky attached to some sort of barrier, some sort of wall that glows at night. You know, they've measured the temperature of the moon. It's like 800 degrees Fahrenheit, which is why you can see it in the dark. Rocks don't reflect the light. It's not glowing because it reflects the light from the sun. That wouldn't make any sense. So this is way more believable than that. But they have these terms in the government, P-52, P-47, basically 47,000 years in the future, 52,000 years in the future, or in the past. It's one of them. I'll let her finish.
47 is present plus 47,000 years. P-52 is present plus 52,000 years.
So basically, P-47 and P-52, two separate groups, 5,000 years apart. If you're to believe that this is what's going on. So P means the present day plus 47,000 years from now. And then P-52 is present day, 52,000 years from now. So that means those two groups, we don't know if are she saying that they're at odds with each other? Are they communicating with each other? They're 5,000 years apart, but they're magically converging to come back to this period in history. But she doesn't give any more details. That's why I said there's a lot of imagination going into this. And I'm trying to see how much of our government pretended that there was a virus. So that means we know our government is capable of make-believe. They can come up with terms for aliens, the way you can come up with names for Pokemon. it doesn't make them more real. And these aren't aliens. They're humans from the future, or so they say. If Epstein is behind this, then this can all be a psyop. People pretending they're from the future and leaking information to you, and you're believing it, and you can't prove that they're from the future, but you can't prove they're not from the future. This could have been what they were working on at Zorro Ranch. We don't know. 15 years, paying 1,000 scientists, high energy physicists, and we don't know what they were doing for 15 years. We don't know what the fruits of their labor generated. We have no clue. And no one's asking, which scares me.
And basically there's a calamity, right? So there's like a apocalypse scenario in the near future. It wipes out most of like everything, man. And there's the ones that go underground and survive, right? And then there's the ones that somehow stay on the surface and miraculously don't die. So the ultra-terrestrials, I'll just tell you, the ultra-terrestrials, I think, have you heard of the P-52s? And
so she's allegedly also Amy Eskridge. She died in 2022. But see, there were some weird things going on with her as well. Like, for example, this is on Russia Today. I've never seen this on any American source. It says senior U.S. scientists who led a direct energy weapons team found burned beyond recognition. Her name, she identified as Amy Eskridge, reportedly one of the 13 scientists who have gone missing or been killed in mysterious circumstances. Authorities have launched an investigation. So apparently they found her body burnt. But see, she's in this video talking about how there's an energy weapon being used against her, and you can see the discoloration in her hands from her wrist to her forearm, her hands, and it goes to her forearm. You can see something is burning her. So energy weapons are real. It's just not given to the public, but we do know they're real. But let's see what she says.
My hands have been burned to hell and back as I've been typing. Because you can beam me through there and through there, and you can get a 3D image of what I'm typing. Because this computer doesn't have a Wi-Fi card, you can't hack it, but you can maybe get a 3D image of me typing. So like we just did that, and did that as an act of pure desperation. And guess what? I feel better immediately. Like, my hands still burn because there's damage. But it's like my body relaxed when we barricaded this.
So apparently she was barricading herself in her home and trying to prevent whatever this weapon was from being able to continue to burn her alive. It ultimately failed. She eventually died from this. But again, she services as an anti-gravity researcher. But how do you research something that doesn't exist? There is no such thing as gravity. So you can't research something that you can't measure and that you can't prove exists. There is no way to do so. So what was her actual job? What did she do? Experiments all day? Was she dropping apples, throwing stuff, using vacuum chambers to see if she can get things to float? No one can explain what her job was. She can't explain what her job was. But she was paid. That's not the only case. But again, these are the scientists from JPL. Her talking about she was murdered. This is the list of people. But there's also somebody that was very interesting that they were talking about. So these are some of the documents that they said were leaked of the people that were taken from Los Alamos. And it shows that the leaked documents from the son of the deceased cybersecurity chief at Los Alamos National Laboratory, where Epstein recruited his scientists, came to light today, showing internal memos, drawings, and Polaroids that indicate UFO experiments conducted for decades at the facility. Precisely there, 2 of the 11 American scientists who disappeared or died under suspicious circumstances in recent years worked. Like I said, these scientists that have disappeared or are dead, They all worked at Los Alamos. And we all know Epstein was literally verbatim recruiting from Los Alamos every single year. They all came in contact in or around the ecosystem of Jeffrey Epstein. And no one's talking about it. So it's not, so I'll be honest, I don't think they were researching UFOs. I think that they were figuring out ways to create them using human-made technology so that they could eventually fool the public into believing that aliens are real, they are here, and they are killing us and they're attacking us. That's what they were doing. That's what I'm guessing. That's what I'm saying we were doing, because my suggestion makes more sense than anything. At least I have a suggestion. Everyone else is just pretending like they have no idea these people all worked with Epstein and at Los Alamos. That they just pretend like they have no idea what we're talking about. So this is the one that was very strange to me that I wanted to bring up. It was actually David Wilcox. I want to understand where did he fit in with all this, because it's a weird coincidence that he just all of a sudden committed suicide. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all, but let's take a listen.
Keep coming. 2 more people are linked to the mysterious web of dead or missing American scientists and researchers, bringing the total number to 13. The FBI is now reviewing the death of NASA nuclear engineer Joshua LeBlanc, who was killed in a fiery car crash last July after he went missing without his phone and wallet. Also under review and new scrutiny tonight is the death of David Wilcock, a paranormal and UFO researcher and writer whose death was ruled a suicide. We're also learning that several scientists from China have also turned up dead too. Join me now is NewsNation national security contributor Tracy Walder. Great to see you, Tracy. So let's start with the 13 American cases. Joshua LeBlanc didn't have a phone and a wallet. Very strange, like some of the others who have gone missing. On top of that fact, all 13 worked in related fields. To a lot of people watching, these may be obvious connections, government work, maybe secret clearances, but no agency that any of them worked for has definitively said that they are connected. So from an investigative perspective, what are we missing here?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Katie. I think the key in this case is what they didn't leave their home with, right? You mentioned before that really all of them, particularly the ones that are still, I guess, considered to be missing, all left home without their essential personal effects. So things like keys, wallets, that kind of thing. And so I think that's key. It is true. Most of the agencies have said that none of them were working on that exact same project, but I think they don't have a choice in this investigation to go to all of these agencies and figure out exactly what it was that each of them are doing. And unfortunately, that's going to take some time.
Again, compartmentalize. All these people were likely working on the same one thing, but they had no idea that the parts they were part of, that they were working on, were part of a bigger puzzle. And they were just working on their piece. They were compartmentalized. They were separated. But I believe that these people also had questions about what they were doing. They're curious. And they were trying to figure out exactly what they were building towards. Most other people knew not to ask questions and to just, take the money and just, do what they're told. But there are some of those who are curious. David Wilcox, I used to watch him and watch his shows and his interviews. Very, very active imagination. But was he also associated with Epstein? And remember, a lot of this, what we consider science, is a lot of it's made up by men who just came up with theories. And David Wilcox seems like he's one of those men that has an overactive imagination and can just come up with wild theories. They pontificate. They just look up at the sky and they just imagine different things. But I don't understand, why was he a threat? Unless he was going to be one of those people that come out and say, hey, I've been studying UFOs for the past 40 years. What's going on in the sky that's not UFOs. Those are people. I think there are certain people who people would listen to who are going to look up at the sky and say, those are not real. Those are other humans attacking you. And I think Wilcox could have been one of those people, and people would listen to him. He had an audience, and this was his study. But then that also would mean that who else studies UFO in America? That's a big time person who's known for being on the forefront of this. And I would think, what is it, Miko, that one scientist, Japanese dude. I said Neil deGrasse Tyson earlier, but I don't think he's a big enough player. But who else is a really big UFO guy? Who were the guys from the TV show Ancient Aliens? If one of them comes up missing or dead in the next couple of weeks, then that means that I predicted it correctly. And this video is going to age well. I'm hoping nothing happens to anybody else, but it just seems like whatever's about to occur is going to occur soon. But I don't know how that's going to happen anymore. If this is all being, in my theory, it's all being coordinated from that little country the size of New Jersey. If they just got their shit rocked by Iran and a lot of their facilities destroyed, I don't think they're going to be able to pull this off anymore the way they would have a month and a half ago. But remember, these people don't have a reverse button. They're going to go forward with it regardless. But there are going to be people like me that are going to bring you back to reality, and we're going to help you keep your sanity. And we're going to explain to you how and why this is all fake. You're going to need people like us to keep you from committing suicide, jumping off a bridge, and just giving up all hope. You're going to see, they're going to show you aliens in the sky. You're going to be like, well, why do I need to pay bills? Why am I paying rent? Would you want American society to buckle? Is that what you want? Because that's what the globalists want. That's what everyone else around the world want. And it seems like they're spraying our skies because they're really worried about convincing us. Yeah, and the Europeans too. But they're not worried about the aliens being seen over Africa or these other continents where they're not spraying, because these other continents don't have the electrical infrastructure to even produce the blue beam that you're going to need to see in the sky. They don't have it in other countries. Only these first world countries and English speaking, for the most part, formerly of the Commonwealth, we have the electrical infrastructure to do the projecting. We need the high energy. I'm talking about these data centers. We don't understand how any of that stuff works. They're just telling us there's just a lot happening at the same time. And no one really understands what's going on. And a lot of people are afraid to talk about it because no one wants to be wrong. I don't mind being wrong, but at least we're going to try to figure it out together, which is why I'm glad I have an audience.
Which isn't great when you have some people who are still missing.
So on that point, the people on the list there's a range of what they did and where they worked. A retired Air Force general, NASA lab director. Is it normal for the government not to know what's happening with such high profile people, or there are enough people working inside these agencies with these types of jobs and security clearances that maybe they wouldn't think twice about something happening to them just in the realm of life after they either left their job or maybe just went out for a walk?
Asking if the government is aware of this and this, the government still hasn't told us about the drones we saw on the East Coast that were all over the news for a few months before Trump got elected. We still don't know about that. Not publicly. We don't know. No one has any idea. So again, to expect them to tell us anything, or we got to figure it out for ourselves. I don't even think we have a government anymore like we used to. I think it's been condensed, and it's basically just an internal war now. They're fighting. There is no more governance. Our courts are corrupt. We have gay activist judges letting criminals out on the streets, but they're lock you up if you're white and conservative. I mean, we're not even a serious country anymore. We're everything's kind of just buckling on itself. I mean, right now we're just kind of just flying blind, and we're just pretending that we still have an actual system of governance, but we don't. So we really can't expect them to come out here and tell us anything. We're going to have to figure it out for ourselves. And honestly, we should all know better than to trust anything they tell us in the first place. I want them to talk about David Wilcox because I'm super interested about him. This is his last video before he died.
David Wilcock, a well-known paranormal writer who had also built a substantial following through his YouTube presence, where he was supported by approximately 511,000 subscribers, has reportedly passed away at the age of 53. His reported death has drawn attention from both his followers and those who had been familiar with his work over the years, particularly due to the circumstances that have been described in early reports. According to a report published by TMZ on Wednesday, April 22nd, authorities in Boulder County, Colorado, received a 911 call earlier that week. The call reportedly came in on Monday, April 20th, at approximately 10:44 a.m., and it was described as being related to an unknown problem occurring outside the town of Nederland. The nature of the situation was not clearly defined at the time the call was made, leaving responders with limited information as they prepared to arrive at the scene. It was further reported that the individual who handled the 911 call believed that the caller might have been experiencing some form of mental health crisis. This assessment, as described by the outlet, added a layer of concern to the situation, as it suggested that the circumstances may have involved emotional or psychological distress. The uncertainty surrounding the initial report appears to have contributed to the urgency with which authorities responded. When law enforcement officials arrived at the location, they reportedly encountered a man who was outside and in possession of a weapon. The details provided indicate that the situation escalated in a tragic direction, as the man allegedly used the weapon on himself. According to TMZ's report, he was pronounced dead at the scene. It was also noted that no other individuals were believed to be present at the location at the time, indicating that the incident involved only the individual in question. While TMZ has connected the incident to David Wilcock in its reporting, it is important to note that, as of the time referenced, the Boulder County Sheriff's Office had not officially confirmed the identity of the deceased individual. This lack of formal identification has left some aspects of the situation unverified through official channels, even as the report itself has circulated widely and drawn attention from the public.
So apparently they're just saying that they don't know, but I mean, what are the odds? No body cam footage of any of this. We're just supposed to believe that David Wilcock just up and all of a sudden decided to self-delete in front of his home when law enforcement is on the way, and he called the police himself so he can delete himself in front of the police. Like, and there's no footage. There's really just, they didn't even say if the police saw him do it. They're just saying that's what happened, but there's no evidence. There's no proof. There's no video. In 2026, there's no Ring camera. There's nothing. What was it about him that made him a threat to the point that he needs to be deleted? And why is all this stuff coming out right now in April? Like, is this supposed to how much time do we have? June? July? What, they're going to pull the trigger in August? You know, they spray our skies every day. They can project any images they want in the sky. I've seen the experiments in China. They've already done it over there, but they've never even like toyed with it over here, because then people will be hip that that's actually a possibility. Right now, we don't even know it's possible. So there's still the surprise effect. Just like right now, if they came out with another vaccine, nobody would fall for it. No one would take the injections. So like most scams, it's only going to work on you once. So they're going to do it. They're going to have to get it right. But I'll be honest, there's too many laps in their judgment, and they're getting sloppy. Just like how they took out Charlie Kirk, they were sloppy. Taking out these people, taking out somebody like Wilcock, sloppy. Very, very sloppy. But again, all these people, including Wilcock, they all go back to having some ties to Epstein. And we all know that Epstein was a master, he wasn't just a brilliant man, he's also a master manipulator as well. And he was able to put together a plan. He worked with Gates and God knows how many other people. And remember what was it, Project 201, where they did the simulation before the scamdemic started 3 months earlier. And they were able to convince the world that there was a deadly virus going around when there never was. The virus only existed in the media. It wasn't real. But the injections that they gave people was real. So if they can have even half that amount of success with this fake alien invasion, then we're all in trouble. Let me know your thoughts and let me know if you agree or not. I have some more thoughts about this, but Trump almost was assassinated tonight, so I have to do another topic about that. So I'm going to end this live, start another one in about 20 minutes. So if you guys can come back, I'd appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, it's America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.